So Havoc is the new movie by Gareth Evans. It's an action movie. I always confuse Evans with Gareth Edwards, who did The Creator, Rogue One. He has the new Jurassic World movie coming out, and he directed the 2014 Godzilla. So that guy always does these big visual feasts, where Gareth Evans is more into this kind of smaller, like not handheld, but practical action. They're not movies that rely on giant CG, like well-done CG. This guy's all about good action, although there is a pretty noticeable CG in this movie. I didn't like Havoc. I don't know. I see a lot of people, giving this movie great reviews, saying it's really, something good, and he hasn't made a movie in quite a minute. But something about this film I could not get on board with. First, I think the plot is very convoluted. Tom Hardy stars in the movie. He plays this corrupt cop who is recruited by the mayor, who's played by Forest Whitaker, in a very small role, to find his son, the mayor's son, because they robbed these gangsters and there's some drug war going on in the city. And Forest Whitaker, the mayor, wants Tom Hardy to find his son, bring him back so he could win this re-election. Basically, there's some war on drugs. It's in this unnamed city, very Seven-esque, where you don't know what city this is. It's just supposed to be some gritty, grimy city. It's a very purposefully gross and nasty movie. Nothing is very pretty looking. Everyone is kind of beat up and tired and angry and jaded. And that's just the vibe of the movie. And I could get behind that. Obviously, Seven is an amazing movie that does that. The Batman 2022, an amazing movie that does that. But there's just something with the action in this movie, with the characters, with the plot that I just couldn't get behind. It just overall has this very thin characterization that kind of affects the rest of the movie. Because I can get behind a very simple chase story or a very simple action story, but there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of different characters, and a major one, who's the mayor's son, really doesn't even have much of a role. He's a big part of the movie where Tom Hardy has to kind of rescue him and bring him back, but the boy himself doesn't feel that important. He basically never speaks. Tom Hardy also has this very thin character where he's got a wife and kids. We never even see them, and it's one of those typical, he's this cop who's a bad guy. He's not a good dad. He's not a good husband. And I don't know, there's just something about all of this movie that just felt like it was missing half of it. It's like this is all built to be an action movie. Everything about it, the structure, the construction of the story, is all meant so we can have these cool action pieces. And even when we do have them, I didn't think they were that good. I mean, there's movies like John Wick, which this movie references with the soundtrack that was playing during the Arc de Triomphe scene in Chapter 4. That same exact song is playing near the end of this movie. And it didn't the entire time make me think I could have been watching John Wick. The ending definitely did. But there's just something about a movie like this where, the cinematography isn't anything amazing. The visuals are very obviously CGI. The characters themselves are really thin. It's very loose action. It just all doesn't add up to an action movie that I find worth enjoying. This very much feels like a piece of content that is on Netflix just to be watched and completely forgotten about. There's nothing in here that warrants being memorable. And that's not how I wanted to go into this movie. And for example, there's other bad movies that are kind of fun bad. For example, the Working Man movie, the new Jason Statham movie, was really silly. It was an action movie, but it had this ridiculous, over-the-top tone. The characters and the production design of that movie was so strange and off-kilter. It wasn't great at all, but it was definitely more enjoyable and more fun to watch. Or even The Accountant 2, which just came out. I thought that movie had so much going on in it. And it was also very cookie cutter and bland, but at least the characters in that were way more interesting. Jon Bernthal and Ben Affleck, their chemistry really held up that movie. Where in this, Tom Hardy doesn't have chemistry with anyone. There's no group of two characters that I feel I enjoy watching them together. At least in The Accountant 2, despite that having very bland villains, a very boring and forgettable plot, it had this great dynamic that kind of was the glue to the movie. It also had these autistic kids working together to take down this syndicated crime network. There was just so much more in that movie, if you think about it, that's unique and different, that it makes it enjoyable. Whereas with Havoc, it just felt like an excuse to have a couple of action scenes. Everything else was white noise filler. That's just how I felt about it. So if you're going to make an action movie, you might as well make it fun to watch and entertaining. Even if it's repeating the same tropes, it needs to have its own identity. That's just how I felt with this. This felt ambiguous and boring. So let me know what you guys think.